Welcome everybody to this week's Mantra Breathe, and we're going to continue to discuss Sandra's new book, Revolutionary Spiritual Healing. It's out on Amazon now. You can find it there in a paperback, a hardback, and also an ebook. And we're working on audiobook, but that's not ready yet. So I just wanted to say how much is in this book. It's got 50 years of Sandra's wisdom, and we've kind of consolidated it all in one place. And I just wanted to read a few of the topics from this book. So today we're talking about family loyalty and how our mind gets stuck in patterns, even if they're negative, based on our family loyalty. And this is the tendency we want to get over, because it's kind of an act of love to be loyal, but do you really want to be loyal to your family's negative self-destructive patterns? Well, no, we would say we don't, but where the mind gets fooled is loyalty and love go together, and loyalty even to the crap is kind of in there. So, and we may have had mothers or fathers who did the guilt trip. And like, if we were to step outside the family pattern or the family mind, we would be given a strong dose of the guilt trip, right? So that kind of kept us kind of hooked in there too. Guilt will always keep you hooked in. So we want to look at this today. Sandra's got a lot to say about it. And it's also a major part of the Loving Relationships training, getting people clear of these 14 family patterns. So the other book that we have is Loving Relationships, the new Loving Relationships book, and all those 14 patterns are in there. So you might want to think of getting that. It's pretty much the LRT in a book form. So, and then in the weeks to come, we're going to discuss the relationship of anger to sickness, fear to sickness, and guilt to sickness. That might actually be next week's, because I'm doing the chapters in order each week of the mantra breathing. Oh, and the other thing that I'm real proud of is chapter 20 is Sandra's ultimate truth process. And it took her years to develop this, and it's written up so clearly in chapter 20 called the ultimate truth process. You can take that process and apply it to any problem in your life and solve it. And we even use it ourselves. When something comes up, we say, time for the ultimate truth process. And we take it through those steps and we ask the questions, what's the thought behind this? And then what are the payoffs and, those sorts of things. So that chapter in the book, it's really powerful, the ultimate truth process. So we highly recommend this book that you pick it up. Sandra's on the back. This is a painting that an artist in Italy did of Sandra many years ago, and we thought it was so great, we put it on the cover. That's my little pitch for the book, and you can all start to lie down now, and Sandra's going to come on and start talking about family loyalty, family patterns, and how to get free of them. So take it away, Sandra Ray.
Okay, everybody can lie down, and I'll be reading this, and you're going to breathe while I'm reading it. So you're going to lie down and listen. And then after I finish this chapter, we will play the music, the mantras. Okay, so I want to tell you, when I first heard about the family mind, I never heard that term until my mother died. And I called up Leonard Orr, the founder of Rebirthing, and I said to him, my mother has died. And I thought he was going to give me some consolation, and he kind of shocked me. He said, the family mind is very intense. And I thought, what's he talking about? And I couldn't believe it. That's all he said. And he hung up the phone. I thought, well, guess what? For the whole next year, I processed parts of the family mind. All my family was gone. So I was left without their bodies, but now I had their family mind. And he was right. It's very intense. And we don't realize how we're hooked into the family mind. We're hooked in, like Marcus said, because we want to be loyal, and we think it's right to be loyal. So we're unconsciously copying the family mind. So this is under the book, under the chapter Family Loyalty. Start to breathe while I'm reading. Right now, 10 deep breaths. We may think we don't want to copy our parents, especially their ailments, but we feel a deep loyalty to our parents even if we do not feel close to them. That's an interesting statement. Even though you may not feel close to them, you still have this addiction to being loyal to them. In breath work, we have seen family loyalty take an unconscious form of copying not only parental behavior problems, but also copying parental illnesses and death patterns. A lot of people are copying their family's illnesses. It is an unconscious process and an unhealthy form of loving. People that are natural conformists manifest these patterns frequently. Rebels, on the other hand, are less likely to take on negative family patterns. Like my sister was a total conformist, so she died at the exact same age that my father did, which was 51. In my case, I was a rebel, so that helped me not to copy that date. But even so, I went through a lot when I was 51. So whatever age your parents or grandparents died, when you're that age, you need a lot more breath work. So everyone is susceptible to family loyalty to some degree, and you have to become conscious of this. When it comes to disease, many people say they've inherited their diseases. They may believe their disease is genetic and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's interesting. You know, there's some diseases where the doctor says, this is genetic, you have a big chance of getting it. I once went on a date with a guy who was a lawyer. He was in Texas, and everyone in his family had Huntington's chorea, which is 100% chance he had of getting it, and there's no cure, and you die from it. But he was the only one that didn't get it. Why? When he was 12 years old, he decided he was not going to go into agreement with those genetics. He remembers that moment when he made that decision. He said, I remember the carpet, the design of the carpet, the design of the couch, the color of the wallpaper. I remember everything. It was so powerful. Well, he never got it, and the doctors couldn't believe it. They said, that's impossible. So he proved to me, you can even overcome genetics, okay? But what if we could acknowledge the fact that we choose to go into agreement with our parents and the genes of our parents? What if we could change our genes and that parental agreement with our minds? One may think this is preposterous, but I know the cases where it's been done. So then I talk here about this guy. By all odds, he was supposed to have it. It's a horrible disease and causes dementia, by the way. And he had a 100% chance of getting it. To this day, his family doctors are mystified by his case, and they don't understand how he beat the odds. He is one who proved we do not have to inherit disease. So become aware of what family members died of and of what age and what condition. Yeah, I mean, he made a decision with power behind it and all his will, and that overcame everything, the power of his decision. Shouldn't this story say something about what we tell our children? If we pass on our negative thoughts to them, they surely will have to struggle to overcome the potential illness, failure, and happiness these thoughts tend to manifest. How do we know when it's too late to change our genes? Is it ever too late? Miracle healings happen all the time and all over the world. I've been reading a lot of books about miracle healings lately, and you'd be amazed how many are written up in books. There's a lot of miracle healings. Okay, many people have already unconsciously programmed their own death to match that of a parent or a grandparent or a loved one. So now I'm asking you this question. At what age did you think you were going to die when you were a kid? Most people made a decision. At what age did you think you were going to die? Maybe the first person you saw die was a grandparent, and you were going to copy their age. And what did you think you were going to die of? That is a programming in there. So this perpetuates the notion that one cannot do anything about inherited diseases. The statistics of such diseases then climb higher, and that perpetuates the programming even more. So in my physical immortality seminars, I asked people to write down at what age they thought they were going to die and at what condition. And their answers usually come out easily because their decisions were already made when they were children. When I ask them why they hold that belief about their death, they often reply it's because of their first funeral experience or death of a loved one or a grandparent. And this conditioned thought is, well, I guess I'm going to be like them. So you can even identify with a parent so strongly that you're taking on their body type. A person's genetics can change. Recently, I was going to the grocery store and I went in a spontaneous rebirth and I had to come home. And what had happened is the day before I had been breathing for an hour to the physical immortality mantra. And so this brought up a memory. I think when I was 3 years old, I was taken to a funeral, the first funeral. And nobody could explain to me how death works. So I got the idea that death is something out there in the ethers that comes at me. So I saw this big dark cloud coming at me and that it's something out there that's going to get me. A lot of people have that thought from what they decided as children. I have learned that a person's palm can reveal their genetics. One of my gurus was also a palmist. He read my palm once every 7 years or so because the genetic information changes, according to him. Once I met a man in Russia who had no line at all in his palm. There was just a little X in the middle. I'll never forget this. I freaked out. I said, "What does this mean?" He said, "Total mutation." So I've never seen anything like that. Once in a healing seminar I was presenting, I had an idea for a new healing process. I had two people sit across from each other and record on paper all the symptoms and diseases that their mothers had and which they had copied and why they had copied them. Then I had them do the same with their fathers. And then for their grandparents, it was such a lengthy process. It grew so intense. I decided never to do it again like that unless there was immediate breathwork session. So if I ever do that in the physical immortality seminar, I have to have immediately a breathwork session because it's so intense. I found myself personally doing this process for weeks after the seminar. I processed all disease programming that my grandmother had manifested in her body. Had I not been able to do breathwork each step of the way, I'm sure I would have ended up in big trouble. So several times I went through aging, believe it or not. Because I was interested in longevity and physical immortality, these topics intrigued me. And the first time I was writing the chapter on physical immortality, chapter 6 in Rebirthing in the New Age, Leonard and I tossed the I Ching and we asked, well, is it time to put out this information? And the I Ching said, yes, but you're on very thin ice. So I said to Leonard, I'm going to do it anyway. So I went into seclusion. I wrote chapter 6. It was so intense for me that what happened is I got arthritis in my hands. And, I was so upset. I ran into Leonard's room and I'm crying and I said, Leonard, I've got arthritis. I'm going through aging. And this, I was pretty young then. And I thought I was going to be a great writer. And what if I can't write? And Leonard was amazing. He said, oh, this is great. I said, what do you mean this is great? He said, you're just going through your old age early when you're strong enough to process it. And I did. I processed it. It took me 3 weeks to get over that. The first step in mastering a pattern of excessive family loyalty is to recognize your tendency to copy. If you start getting a disease like the one of your parents, grandparents, or ancestors, you don't have to resign yourself to it. Resignation is going to be deadly. It's possible to rise above the negative thought patterns, but you may need the support of advanced rebirthers and healers who know how to transform the mind and know how to move energy. The point is that you can still love your parents without being loyal to their negative patterns. Why be loyal to something negative? Only because you're unconscious, that's why. At one point, I started even taking on my sister's mind. I felt guilty that she died and I was living. So then my guilt demanded punishment and I started creating some weird stuff in my body. It took me several years to straighten myself out and let those patterns go. Never underestimate the power of the subconscious mind and the ego's trickery. Why do you suppose the masters strongly recommend that we stay on the spiritual path? We must be alert, for one thing, and we must learn techniques to handle all this unconscious stuff. I'm not a geneticist and I don't want to get into arguments with geneticists, but what I want is to point out this. If someone can materialize his body and dematerialize, as I have witnessed Babaji do, then there's a lot about the human mind that we don't even understand. If you still think all this is crazy, reading books written about the ancient teachings of the masters in India, I strongly recommend a series by Robert Svoboda called Agora, At the Left Hand of God and Kundalini. It's incredible material. I can hardly digest it myself. What these writings have taught me is that there is something far beyond what we currently call modern science. There is the Divine Mother, the Eternal One, who is supreme, the great healer. So if you think you're stuck in a family condition or a family disease, start praying to the Divine Mother for help. She will always help you. That's why we always do Divine Mother prayers at every liberation breathing session, so the Mother can transmute what comes up in the session. And right now I'm working on getting closer and closer to the Divine Mother. And the more I get close to her, the better I feel.
Would you say your spiritual practice and your relationship with your gurus and masters and the Divine Mother is what gets you free of the family mind?
Absolutely. And I don't think I could do it without that.
Yeah.
And most people out there are not even thinking about this.
And mantra breathing is one of those things that helps you let go of the family mind.
Yeah, that's what we're doing today in mantra breathing. If you're in a relationship, you need to talk to your mate about this, or they need a session. Otherwise, they might start unconsciously checking out or channeling the family mind. So this is something to discuss, and Marcus and I talk about it quite a bit. So now today we're going to play Sacred Source. I like this one because there's a lot of mantras to the Divine Mother in there. So it's very, very powerful. What I want you to get about mantra breathing is that it's like a double whammy. First of all, just doing liberation breathing on yourself is fantastic. But with the mantra also, it's like a double whammy. And it's really good to do this every week because it keeps you alert and clear. And Babaji said, if you keep doing this every week, stuff won't stick in your body. Spiritual maintenance. So another thing I want to say is during this mantra, get that you are worshiping God, we're worshiping Babaji and worshiping the Divine Mother. And worship is one of the main things for healing. So not only are you listening to this mantra, try to stay focused on the mantra. Even if you don't understand it, what it's saying, it doesn't matter. It's all praises to God and Babaji. All these mantras are just praises to God. So when you're in a state of praising, that is a very powerful healing on your body. That's why this mantra breathing is so amazing. You're breathing and releasing, and you're also praising God. So try to focus. When your mind drifts away, say to yourself, I'm going back to the mantra. Okay, and when the mantra goes faster, then you breathe a little faster. I think that you're going to really enjoy this one, Sacred Source. So let's all begin right now. I'm going to be sitting here and watching you and sending you guys energy. Marcus is going to breathe today, his turn. Thank you all for being here. We love you. And if you have any questions, you need help with anything, just write me, Sandra@sandraray.com. I always answer emails. Okay, so let's start breathing and praising God.